Could there be such a thing as a recipe for health that we can all get on board with? Today, Dr. Chatterjee takes us through some of the key things that we could put in that recipe. That's today's show. You'll know that if you listen to the show live, every month we have low tox partners that help you with your swaps or stock ups, depending on what you might need right now. Check out the Weleda and Oz Climate offers below. These two are for Aussie residents. Enjoy. Hello, Rangan. How are you?
I'm super good, Alex. Thank you for having me on your show.
I love that we were able to make it work across the world. And I'm going to jump right in and say, wow, body of work, incredible. It sounds like if you read your CV and all the accomplishments and books and the fact that you fit in being a professor and seeing patients, it sounds like you are just a superhuman. How do you feel as the human behind it all in the work you know you're put on earth to do? How's it going for you?
Honestly, really, really good. Like
Great.
genuinely.
Yeah.
Um, I know it may seem on the outside if read all the things that I do that actually, oh, how does he manage to do all of that? But actually, it's not as much as you think in the sense that I have built systems around me to make sure that I'm not overworking, that I'm not getting stressed out. And underlying it all is I literally love what I do. Like everything I do in the public health space, whether it's my podcast, my books, my speaking tours, or whatever it might be, I love it. It doesn't feel like there's a separation between me and what I stand for and what I stand for when I'm on the microphone, let's say. It's
Mm.
the same thing. And I don't know if this is related to your question or not, but I've just finished my very first UK theatre tour. So I created this 2.5 hour show. It's called the Thrive Tour. I've, nearly 20,000 people saw it over March around the UK, but it was, really tiring,
Mm.
because, I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at 5 normally, but on tour, I was still on stage at 10:30 and I couldn't afford the seats till 2 a.m. So I was getting progressively more and more tired. But what I've realized is that it's not as draining as you might think because one of my friends at one of the events asked me, he said, Rangan, listen, you seem to be energized when you're on stage and you're getting more and more energy throughout the evening. And I said, yeah, that's because I no longer perform. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is much of my life, I've tried to change who I am to be accepted by other people, right? So you're putting on this act, you're looking for external validation. And that's the biggest thing that's changed with me over the years. I'm not anymore. I'm worried about, not worried. I just try to validate myself. Am I being authentic? Am I living in alignment with my values? And when I go on stage on this tour, for example, I'm just being myself. I'm not trying to be someone else. Therefore, it's not as draining. So when we try and put on these masks and perform even just a little bit, it is very draining.
It is.
So going back to your original question, I think one of the reasons why, despite doing so many things, I feel really, really good is because I feel more today than ever before. I'm living in alignment. Who I am on
Mm.
the inside and who I'm on the outside, I'd like to think are one and the same, or certainly they're about as close as they've ever been to each other.
Beautiful. And it kind of leads me to also want to ask then, one of the issues with this mass information environment on social media where, oh, I've got to try that protocol. Oh, I've got to do this exercise program. Oh, she looks like she's really got it together. I think I might, follow her and start doing what she's saying. And, doctors even having conflicting hot takes on different ways of being. I feel like ordinary people are hyper externalizing. So, literally doing the opposite of what you're talking about. We're ignoring ourselves
Oh,
at the expense of the flood of information and this sort of indecision or swapping and changing what we're doing every
yeah.
week. What would you say is a path for people to start a better conversation with their intuition about what truly works for them?
Yeah, I love that question. chapter 1 of my latest book, Make Change It Last, is called Trust Yourself. And it is literally all about this topic
Mm,
because, you know, what have people said for years? Oh, people need knowledge. Knowledge is power, right?
mm-mm.
Well, yeah,
I
exactly.
disagree. Yeah.
I completely disagree as well because we have, if you look at this rationally, you would have to acknowledge that we've got more health information out there than ever before, right?
Mm,
More health podcasts, books, blogs, TV shows with health segments, right? There's more information than ever before.
mm,
But if you look at the data, our physical health is getting worse and our mental health is getting worse. So the increase in information is not leading to better health outcomes. Now, there are many reasons for that,
yeah.
right? But if it was just that we need more information, well, the worsening health outcomes don't make sense. This confusion people are getting, right? Because again, what's the common narrative? The common narrative is you should only listen to health advice from well-credentialed experts, right?
Mm,
Now, I don't agree with that, like genuinely, and I'm a well-credentialed expert myself, and I don't. I've always, on an individual level, I've wanted to learn from all different modalities and different professions. Even when I was a junior doctor, there was a personal trainer I'd follow online. I thought, God, that sounds really interesting about muscle mass and type 2 diabetes. I wasn't learning that at medical school. I'm
mm,
going to bring that in to help my patients, right? So I've always been very open-minded and willing to learn from anyone because I believe you can, right? But going back to this narrative that you need to only listen to well-credentialed experts. Well, here's the problem with that. As you hinted at in your question, in 2025, you could get a well-credentialed medical doctor from Harvard University suggesting to you that you should be going on a low-carb diet for your mental well-being, and they will provide case studies and published data to support what they're saying. At the same time, you could get a professor from Oxford University telling you to follow a whole food plant-based diet for your mental well-being and could also present to you case studies and published data. So people will often say to me, Dr. Chatterjee, I don't know which expert I should trust anymore. But
mm,
I don't think, Alex, in 2025, that's the most helpful question. Instead of asking, which expert should I trust? I think the question should be, why do I no longer trust myself? We've out,
hmm Hold
we've
on.
out,
We've got to give that space.
yeah,
Why do I no longer trust myself? That is the work ahead.
that's the word. And this is what your question is all about for me,
Mm,
right? Because underlying that belief that which expert should I trust, there's this assumption that there's one approach. That why can't someone tell me the one approach that's going to work for me? Alice, I've been a doctor for 23 years. One of the key things I've learned is that there is no one approach that works for everyone, right?
mm,
That's just not been my experience of treating tens of thousands of patients. I have seen some patients, depending on the state of their health, thrive on a low carb diet. I have seen some patients thrive on a whole food plant based diet, right? Different things work for different people. And I think when I see all these fights online about which diet to follow, I'm like, guys, could it be that you're all right? Like
mm,
you're all right for different people. Both of those experts are correct for different people. The question is, which one of those people are you? So I would say to people, well, I tell you what, if you're confused, why don't you follow one of these experts' diet's advice for 4 weeks? And during those 4 weeks, pay attention to your energy, your focus, your sleep, your digestion, your bloating, right? Pay attention. Maybe do blood tests as well. Then for another 4 weeks, do the other diet and pay attention to those same things. You will find once you start tuning in that you will very quickly know at this stage in my life, actually, I think that's the right diet for me, right? That's the one that suits me. And I will confidently say that after 23 years of seeing patients, Alex, the patients who truly transform their lives for good, not just for a few weeks or a few months, for good, they were the patients who learnt to trust themselves. They were the patients who were able to say to me, Dr. Chatterjee, you mentioned these 6 things that you want me to do, but actually these 5 work really well for me, but that one, that's not the right one for me. I love that. I'm like, great. You're
mm,
now becoming empowered and you're telling me what's working for you and what's not going to work for you. And I kind of feel that I don't know if this is a West v Eastern thing or not. I'm not convinced it is, but I kind of feel that when do we stop learning to trust ourselves? I think it starts at school where we kind of start listening to teachers and we start to go, well, I don't know, like that person's going to tell me what's best for me. I'm a very experienced medical doctor. At the same time, I can say I cannot possibly know exactly what is the right approach for each and every single person. I can't. I can
Mm,
offer you guidelines, principles, case studies, but ultimately you have to try it out and see what works best for you. So, going back to your original question, how can we learn to do this? I think the very best way is with a daily practice of solitude. And
mm,
when I say solitude, I mean some form of practice where we stop consuming from the outside, right? So, what do we do these days? So many of us, we wake up, we're consuming
mm.
email, news, social media.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
very
part,
reactive, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and I say, look, if you're constantly consuming from the outside, even good quality content,
Mm,
right? You're not allowing yourself to listen to what's going on the inside. Your body is always trying to send you messages and signals. And we've stopped paying attention. We live in our heads. We're just constantly thinking about stuff and consuming stuff. That's why we're so confused. That's why these experts are confusing us. If we were more tuned into ourselves, if we spent 10 minutes a day in solitude, whether that be journaling, meditation, breath work, yoga, even a walk. You don't have to be
mm.
still for solitude. You can move your body and get that internal stillness. That's how you're going to learn the skill again, or I should say, relearn the skill of
Yeah.
listening to yourself. Because you had it when you were a kid.
Mm,
You had it, but it's been untrained. I think this is the biggest thing in health, frankly. I think in a world where there's more and more information coming out by the day, the only way we're going to navigate this new world is by learning to trust ourselves again. And I personally believe that it's solitude that's going to help do that for us.
love that. And do you think part of the problem is the culture piece, what we're surrounded by and how we've built societies and the things that line our supermarket shelves? Because I often think you'd get to I remember getting to my late 20s and I'd have one of those popper drinks for breakfast that kind of had everything you needed in it that was trash, right? And I was sick all the time. And I remember realizing at one point, once I did clean up everything and once I did learn how to cook in my by my early 30s and I felt great, I was like, I actually never was taught that you are designed to feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Like that was so it was just so normal to be average and often sick that it was like I think that's part of the lost in or the lacking intuition piece, right?
Yeah, completely. Because when your normal is suboptimal, as it is for so many people, you do lose touch with your intuition, right? It
Mm,
changes who we are, it changes our biology, it changes how we experience the world. And I think something that a lot of people forget is that, we are living generally in these toxic environments these days,
yeah.
right? If your hunter-gatherer ancestors, or even now people in, let's say, the Hadza tribe in Tanzania who are well and healthy and are living in alignment with their evolution, bring them to Sydney, bring them to London, bring them to New York, bring them to LA, they'll also get fat and sick, right?
Mm,
Because the easy option in the modern Western world, and frankly, the modern world, I should say,
yeah.
is the unhealthy option, right? So that's one of the hard things for us these days. In order to be well, you have to actively go against the prevailing tide of society.
Which Brene Brown has taught us is the single hardest thing to do as a human.
Well, we're social animals. We want to fit
Mm,
in, right? And
yeah.
I really feel this with my children, right? My kids are 14 and 12. I kind of
Ah, yeah.
feel that until the last 2 years, I would say, I felt I still do. My kids are great to be clear, but
Yeah.
like I'm now really seeing, particularly with my eldest, peer influence,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is strong.
It's so strong. Yeah,
I've
my
managed
boy's
to control
15
the
and
home environment, the foods, like how they live. But man, things are starting to change and I'm having to ask myself questions and go, okay, you want your kids to have the best. You want the best food in the bodies. You want this in the bodies. At the same time, you have to acknowledge that they want to fit in with their friends.
mm,
So I've had to loosen up a little bit relative to what I would ideally like. And that's something, if I've struggled, I've had to challenge myself and go, okay, but I, I draw a hard line on certain things, for example. Okay. So, I know social media and smartphones is a hot topic everywhere. I think this stuff is toxic. My children are not on social media. They don't say they want to anymore. They never did, to be fair, right?
mm.
But me and my wife always had open conversations with them about why we didn't want them on social media. And I do believe they might be two of the only kids in their school who are not on social media. But unless they're not telling me something, unless, this is going to bite me in the ass in a few years' time, right?
Well, one
It's
of them is a teenager, so we never know.
it kind of I think
Mm,
we have open dialogue with them about this stuff, and I say this
yeah.
is the reason why not. Have I softened up on some things about diet when they're out with their friends? Yes, I have. I think still relative to most people, it's really, really good because you know, let's. I mean, that's another rabbit hole to go down. But going back to your question, yes, our environment and our culture and our society influences us more than we think, and I think you've also now got probably two different sets of people who are living in society. I never thought about it like this before, right? But I think you've got one set who just don't know how good it's possible to feel. They just don't
Mm,
know because they're doing what they've been told to do. You have a bowl of cereal in the morning, you have a snack at lunchtime, you have a big carb-rich lunch, and then you feel knackered at 2:30 or 3 p.m. You need a coffee to power through. Like, I used to think that was normal.
me too. Yeah,
Right? So I
100%.
ain't judging. But
Mm,
the problem is, once you've experienced what it's like when you largely and mostly put whole foods into your body and don't drink soft drinks and don't drink all that sweet stuff,
mm,
you can't unknow it. You're like,
no.
well, oh, this feels amazing. And the longer you do it for, the more you don't want to go back, right? So, but I think there is a whole population out there who simply do not know what it feels like to be great.
Mm,
I really, and that's sad, and something I with my work, and I'm sure you the same thing. We're
yeah.
trying to empower people to go, just give it a go. I still believe, right, after 23 years of medicine, one of the most powerful things I can recommend to a patient is to encourage them to try for 2 weeks when they're ready, when they've got everything ready, and maybe they're not traveling
Are
much,
we
maybe
ever
more
ready though?
stable.
Are we ever ready?
Yeah, good point. Two
Yeah.
2 weeks of exclusively whole foods, right?
Good
If you have
challenge.
never done that before, it is life changing. People go, oh, I've got more energy. My skin's
Mm,
better. I'm sleeping better. Like it is really that profound for so many people. And once yeah, you might then go, I can't do this long term, but at least and then it will be niggling away at the back of your mind. How can I get back to that? How can I get back to that?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Something I want to ask, given we're talking about the patient doctor experience at this moment, is a lot of people find external health modalities, therapies, go looking for other answers because in a conventional setting, it seems still for most general practice, you have to wait until the blood values are sort of in line with the symptoms that have been complained about to finally do something. And doing something often involves a medication. Now, I know you've championed type 2 diabetes reversal in clinic and had some incredible results. How close are we to a greater awareness of prevention at the tiny red flag stage rather than waiting for the poop to hit the fan in general practice, do you think?
We're closer than we were, but
Great.
at the same time,
So at least we're traveling in
we're
a good
making progress, but
direction.
we're
Yeah.
nowhere near where we should be, right?
Mm,
With the knowledge that we have. Medicine is a big beast of an institution. It takes
Yeah.
a long time to start making these shifts in how we practice. So I'll give an example. Okay. So in 2014, I was filming for my own BBC One primetime documentary series called Doctor in the House.
Mm.
I lived alongside families who were sick for 4 to 6 weeks to see what happens if a doctor um, lives with you for 4 to 6 weeks. Can you get better health outcomes, right? It was a phenomenal experience. And one of the things I was able to do, I was able to help people reverse multiple illnesses on primetime television, which was phenomenal to be able to
It must
show
have felt
people.
amazing.
Oh, it
Yeah.
really did, right? And
Mm.
one of the things I did was I helped a lady called Dottie reverse her type 2 diabetes in 30 days. It was all filmed. There's no magic there. It was a documentary. The BBC filmed everything. We got all blood tests to prove it. And what was really interesting is back and when the program aired in 2015, right? So it's a 5 million people in the UK. It's gone to 70 countries around the world now, right? It was deemed controversial, right?
Mm.
For all the positive feedback I got, I also got some vitriolic hate online. People saying, this is a load of nonsense. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic, irreversible disease. This is nonsense. Now, I knew it wasn't nonsense. I knew that type 2 diabetes could be reversed, but back then it wasn't widely acknowledged. Now, in any general practice in Australia or the UK or America, there will be a code for type 2 diabetes in remission. Okay, it is
Mm.
well accepted and acknowledged, right?
Wow,
So
that's great.
in just 10 years from me facing a load of vitriol for doing this on primetime television, it's now well recognized and is conventional wisdom. Okay. That is one way that we're showing that, okay, we are updating that. When I say we, the medical profession is updating how it views these things.
Mm.
But let me give you another example relating to blood sugar, right? So our blood sugar should be in a tightly controlled range, right? Your body will do whatever it can to keep it in this tightly controlled range. If we have been abusing our body for a number of years in a variety of different ways, let's say with poor food choices, not moving our bodies enough, being chronically stressed, being sleep deprived, basically the modern world,
Mm.
we can end up getting to a point where we can no longer keep our sugar in the optimal range, our blood sugar, and it creeps up until it ultimately becomes type 2 diabetes, right? Type 2 diabetes is when we have chronically elevated blood sugar levels.
Mm.
Now, here's the thing. If you get your blood taken, one of the markers you can do is your HbA1c, which is your 2 to 3 month average blood sugar level. Very common, very cheap test. You can get it in most countries around the world. Okay. Now, when it hits 6.5, it is deemed to be type 2 diabetes. In the UK, when it hits 6.0, I don't know what it is in Australia. I think it's the same actually. When it hits 6.0, we call it pre-diabetes.
Mm.
Right. Now, here's the thing. You can have an HbA1c at 4.5, 5, 5.5. All of those are considered normal. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. Health is on a continuum, right? 6.0 is when you hit pre-diabetes. 6.5 is when you hit type 2 diabetes. But there is a lot of research showing that even when you go above 5.2 or 5.3, your all-cause mortality risk starts to go up. Right.
Mm.
What does that mean? Basically, what I'm saying is that in the UK and in Australia today, you could have an A1C result back at 5.9 and it will be reported as normal.
Yeah.
Right. So it's complete madness, if you ask me, right?
Mm.
You're just almost at pre-diabetes, but you're not there yet. So we call it normal.
Mm.
Let alone the fact that I've just said that above 5.2, 5.3, there's pretty good data suggesting that once you get above that, your risk of all-cause mortality starts to go up. Your risk of death from any cause. So there's a huge window there where we're not catching people, where we go, oh, you're normal, you're normal, until then one day in 5 years, oh, you've got diabetes. And the patient
Mm.
thinks, oh, I've just happened to get
That came out of
diabetes.
the blue. Yeah.
Yeah, but type 2
Mm,
diabetes probably takes about 10 years or so to build up in your body. It doesn't happen overnight. So where I think medicine still is the practice of modern medicine, I still think is behind the research, but there's many areas actually. But
mm,
one area is here, we should be catching people at 5.6. We should be saying, hey, listen, you're nowhere near pre-diabetes or diabetes, but you're not optimal,
mm.
right?
Or
And
you're a couple of points higher than you were last year. And that's just something
exactly.
we want to now work on
Yeah.
proactively.
Would
Yeah.
you be interested in me helping you understand what is going on in your lifestyle that may be contributing to this?
Mm,
We don't do that, but if we did this, sure, not everyone will say yes, but some people will go, yeah, go on, doc. Actually, yeah, I'd love to know. Is there something I could do about this? By not intervening, then we are doing our patients a real disservice. So, are we getting better? Yes. Are we where we should be? No.
mm. And how hard, at the professor level, I'm sure you have insights into the steps that are required to get us there. What are the conversations behind the scenes in the medical community that drive that change?
You know, it's really hard, right?
Mm,
Things are so fixed in place. Things are done a certain way. And I think, I think 23 years into my career, I can say this. I think modern medicine is really good at some things,
mm.
but it's not good at everything. It's very good at acute problems.
Yeah, I'm not going to go see my acupuncturist if someone's, torn my arm. It's like,
Exactly,
yeah.
right? So we're really good. You're having a
Mm,
heart attack, yeah.
yeah.
Go to your ER, go to your A&E, get sorted. You had a car crash, great. You've got a pneumonia, right? Which
Mm,
you're really sick, yeah. Go and get a treatment like an antibiotic for your doctor. I get it. We're very good at that acute stuff. Where we're not very good, in my view, is at the chronic stuff, the stuff that is 80 to 90% of what we now see. I mean, the truth is 80 to 90% of what doctors now see is in some way related to our collective modern lifestyles. I'm not
mm,
putting blame on people else. I do understand that modern life is tough, but we have to acknowledge and understand that the way we are living, modernity, is causing havoc on our bodies, right? And what we get taught in medical school is how to diagnose disease. We do not get taught how to create health, right?
mm.
The general public do not understand that. And I think a lot of doctors, if I'm honest, don't understand that. You know, a lot of doctors don't actually know about the creation of health. We get very much taught to what are the symptoms? What category can we put those symptoms in so we can make a diagnosis? Once we've got the diagnosis, we can give treatment, usually pharmaceutical drugs.
Mm.
That approach can work for some people some of the time, but it doesn't work for most people most of the time. So if you've got gut problems, depression, anxiety, sleep issues, chronic stress, whatever it might be, I just don't think our pharmaceutical tools are the way to manage that stuff. You need a
Yeah,
much more
agree.
holistic approach, but fundamentally, we're not taught that. So I've got this, I created a course with a colleague called Prescribing Lifestyle Medicine in 2018. It was the first lifestyle medicine course accredited by the Royal College of GPs in the UK. And we have trained, now we moved the course online during COVID, we moved it online. And we've trained several thousand doctors all over the world now in these principles. And 95% of healthcare professionals who've done my course say that it has significantly changed the way that they practice. And we've had, yeah, GPs, we've had consultant cardiologists, psychiatrists, endocrinologists all come and do this training.
Mm.
But the problem is, and this relates to your question, Alex, the problem is that that course is still reliant on doctors who are interested signing up
Yeah, I
to
was going to
learn
say it's
and
not
do it.
exactly mandatory and part of the medical
Exactly. So
degree. Mm.
is this an improvement?
Yeah.
Yes. Is it ideal? No, because ideally you'd want every doctor to go through some form of training like this so they have this knowledge. But I am an optimist, Alex. I look at
Me
the world
too.
through
Yeah.
rose-tinted glasses. I do believe that we will sort this out. And the fact that, several thousand doctors now have done that course, that gives me hope because all those doctors are now going to their practices wherever they are around the world and spreading the word. And, you know, sp- you know, I think things are changing. And I do think it will very quickly come to this kind of threshold point, this tipping point, where
Mm.
if you're a doctor, you don't know this stuff, you're going to just be left behind, basically. And I don't think that it's too far to go until we get there.
Yeah, 100%. It's a huge passion of mine because my experience in the last decade has been around mold toxicity. And that was a subject I never wanted to know anything about and have now become an accidental global expert through, I think I spent the year before I figured it out, I spent about $25,000 of our life savings on trying to
Oh.
figure it out. And I think, that's that last piece, isn't it? The environmental piece, the fragrances in the home, and the mold and the issues with leaks not being fixed. And I think with what you're talking about with that lifestyle piece, and then what I think will be the final penny drop, which will be the environmental toxin piece.
Environmental toxin
it's
piece is huge,
it's
right? And it's
huge.
it's
Yeah.
and the problem is that you know, like I also communicate with a lot of people each week, and
Mm.
what I was thinking about, you want to be honest with people and transparent with people. At the same time, if you really understand how toxic the world in which we live is, it's
Yeah.
pretty stressful for a lot of people. It's
It
like, well,
can be. And
what
then
the
it's
hell are they?
ushering the mental health piece of that person's
Yeah,
journey.
I mean, just on a
Yeah.
on a on a personal level, like I think not I think I know I'm in excellent health, right? I am. Yeah, yes, without getting into all the details, I look after myself. I'm able to look after myself.
Yeah.
Issues I've
I
had in the
love that you added in able, because that's a modern struggle as well, isn't it?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
accept that. I accept that, because of my lifestyle and my job and therefore the income that I get, I have a certain capability to make certain choices that not everyone can. And I do recognize that. What's really interesting for me, let's say you talked about the toxic environment. Let's just talk about microplastics for just a moment, right?
Oh my goodness.
So I know
Yes.
about microplastics, okay? And I've seen a lot of the science on it and I'm up to date with it. And I, do my bit and try. But until I went to LA in November, so my sixth book, Make Change Last, came out in January. So in November, I went to LA to go on some of the big sort of global podcasts to talk about my new book, right? So we
Mm.
pre-record the episodes and they would come out in January when my book's out, right? There's this really phenomenal clinic in LA run by my friend Darshan Shah called Next Health. It's really sort of cutting edge, very, very LA, basically. Okay.
Yeah, like
But
tons of biohacking
you,
and
you can literally get
fancier
anything
stem
there.
cell injection today.
Yeah, I
So
don't think they
yeah.
had that, but it was very LA,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's excellent. And
Mm.
so I went in and ran a full set of bloods, right? Stuff that I can't get in the UK, which is not easy to get. I was there and he's like, oh, we can. I was like, yeah, let's do them. One of the things we ran was my BPA levels, right?
Yes.
I got them back too. I come back to the UK and he sent me, he's like, your results are back. I had a look. I was like, oh my God, right? So there's a range. My BPA levels were right at the top of the red range, i.e., mega, mega high.
Mm.
Now, I don't have any direct symptoms that I know of, but I know the potential long-term implications of this. Now, this is what it was really interesting. I'm an expert. I'm knowledgeable about the stuff. I look after myself as much as I can. That BPA test has literally changed how I live. Since that test,
Mm.
since I got that results, I have not bought a single takeaway coffee. I have not drunk, I think once on a flight,
You
I
had the little
had
bottle of
water on
water.
a
Yeah.
little bottle of plastic. Apart from that,
Mm.
I haven't. So this is where testing can be really useful, right?
Yeah.
It's not stressed me out. I just thought, oh, this is interesting. You have really high levels of BPA in your blood. I don't want to have high levels of BPA in my bloods, right?
No, thank you.
Yeah. And so I don't know if everyone in the street would also be in the red. Maybe they
Mm.
would be. Maybe that's how prevalent microplastics are now. But for me personally, seeing that, immediately a switch flipped in my brain. I'm like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it. Those behaviors aren't now optional. They're like, no. And I may be going back in June to record some more podcasts. And if I do, I'll
You've got to
rerun the
retest.
test.
You have to
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it's come down, then
Mm.
suddenly I'm like, oh, had an issue. I changed my habits and my behaviors. It's come down. Right. That then reinforces that those behavior changes are making a difference. It's
Hmm.
this very powerful loop. So, look, we'll see. Let's see if it comes out. I flip and hope it's come down when I
Yeah.
go back in
Well,
June.
and a
But
lot of men don't test their estrogen levels to kind of marry up the something like that. And then we always test testosterone for blokes, so that just seems like the normal thing to do. But estrogen can be a really special marker for the environmental toxin piece with the endocrine disruptors because it's so prevalent. But I remember when I cleaned everything up and started Low Tox Life. And I was really passionate about those little simple changes that you said. It wasn't rocket science. It was just saying no to the coffee, saying no to the bottle of water, bringing my own reusable everywhere, and it was stainless steel. And I remember doing my first tox screen and the naturopath saying, how on earth are your levels for phthalates and BPA so low? You live in Sydney, you live in a city. And
mm,
it's just proof that our direct environment and our daily choices really can make an impact, even in a city environment. And I am smack bang in a Sydney. So
yeah,
I
but
think,
there's a really interesting point there for me, Alex, which
mm,
is, and look, do we all need to test? Look, I think we've all got different personalities. We all respond to different things at the
yeah,
same
it can
time.
be agency and motivation for one person and stress and panic for the next.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, people ask me, health wearables a good thing? I say, it depends,
Mm,
right? I actually respond very well. I don't allow the
me
data to
too.
stress me out.
Yeah.
I can look at it rationally. I can use it as a way of helping me change my behavior. My wife, on the other hand, can't stand them. She doesn't want anything on them. She would find it, it would probably induce anxiety, right?
Mm,
So again, we want these blanket statements. Is it good or bad? It's like, well, it kind of depends. For some people, they're great. For other people, they're probably not the right approach. But, where testing can be really useful is if you test, you get a result, you make a change, and then that result changes, that's a very, very powerful loop. Let's say these HbA1cs that we were talking about before, these blood sugar markers, right?
mm,
Let's say someone has 5.7 or 5.8, and the doctor, instead of saying it was normal, says, hey, listen, you've gone up from where you were just a year ago. If it goes up more, you're actually pre-diabetic, right? Let's look at your lifestyle. Let's say that the patient's engaged and goes, yeah, okay, right. I don't want it to go to pre-diabetes. I want it where it was 2 years ago. And I don't know, let's say they start going for a walk every lunchtime and they lift weights twice a week and they cut out their ice cream habit, whatever it might be. And 6 months later, they check and it's gone down to 5.4. That is so powerful because the
so
patients,
powerful.
because when it's invisible, you don't really know what's working.
Yeah, it's
But
just chat, really.
it's just
And
like, yeah, well, I
yeah.
think I feel better. But when you go,
Mm,
oh, wow, I do this and then it comes down, that's very powerful. So for me, right, let's say I go and this won't happen with me because just the way I'm wired, but someone might go and redo their BPA test, let's say in June.
mm,
Um, and if it hasn't changed at all, they might go, oh, screw it. None of this makes a difference. I'm just going to go back to my takeaway coffees, right? And it doesn't make a
yeah.
difference. If that is the case with me, which I hope it isn't, I'd like to think I will see a big difference. But if I didn't, I would go get even more inquisitive, go, okay, what is leaking in?
Mm,
What is going on where I'm not able to clear this, or I would use that as a way of going deeper into my life to try and figure out why have I got it. So yeah, just a few thoughts there for people to think about. How do they respond to testing? What do they think of when they get those tests? Because I think it's always worth asking ourselves these kinds of questions and actually challenging ourselves to see if we can change it.
100%. And activewear is a huge one that a lot of people don't realize. Oh, it's the shorts I wear when I'm bike riding, or,
Yeah.
that kind of
That's
stuff.
a hard one as well, isn't it? Because you've
Mm.
got all this gear and we're used to not having the sweat and everything on it. But
Yeah, I switched to cotton recently and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, it
I'm
just
starting
feels a
to.
bit daggy. Like I'm
But
actually dealing with it, but I'm staying the course because it's true. I do a lot of exercise. I walk the dog every single day, a couple of days at the gym, and I just don't. I recognize that that's a lot of hours to be wearing synthetic clothing. So
yeah.
yeah. Now, you are coming to Sydney. Last question. What can we expect? It's very exciting that you will be on our shores, and I'm sure a lot of low toxers will be there.
I can't wait. Listen, I've been to Australia once before when I was 18. I think that was in 95 on a family holiday. So haven't been in fact, it will be 30 years, basically, won't it? 30
Oh my
years I won't have been to
gosh.
Australia before. Right. So my wife's never been, my kids have never been. So we're all coming for a family holiday this summer. And as part of this family holiday, I am doing 3 dates. I'm doing Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. Beautiful theatres, and it's all going to be about health and happiness. So they're going to learn about, how do you develop the skill of happiness? Because happiness is a skill, and that we can cultivate and get better at once we know what to work on. We're going to talk about health. There's going to be Q&A where people, I think the second half is going to be direct questions with me. It's going to be a really, really special evening in these beautiful theatres. And, you know, we only just recently announced, and I think there's already like 600 tickets sold at each event already just on announcement. So I'm pretty sure these things are going to sell out by the time I get there. But I'm really, really excited. I know a lot of people in Australia listen to my podcast. I think it might be the third most popular country that
We
listen
do
to my
love our
show.
health in this country, I've got to
Yeah, I think
say.
it's
Yeah.
UK, America, then Australia, and it's I'm very lucky it's got a massive listenership. So I kind of think a lot of my podcast listeners in Australia will be at these events. But yeah, it's going to be a fun, motivational, inspirational evening, full of practical guidance, hopefully full of practical insights and wisdom. And I just can't wait. So in July, which I believe is your winter, right? Although
Mm-hmm.
the temperatures still look pretty good to me from where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah,
fancy doing
true.
something this winter, in the middle of July, and having a night out and learning all about health and happiness, come along. I would love to see you there.
And I think now that the COVID times are done, I think you cannot put a price tag on getting together with like
Oh
minds
my God.
and absorbing the energy of that space where we are all here because we know we deserve to feel great. I
Yeah.
think that
Alice,
was really missing for a few years.
there's two things I have to say. First of all, there's so many things that you've said in this podcast that deeply resonate with me. That yeah, I think we would just hit it off so much. I think we see the world in a very similar way.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. Right. I think a collective inertia has set into society post COVID. I
Mm.
think in COVID, what happened? Let's take a very simple example. I know patients who pre COVID would, let's say they liked doing yoga, they would go to a local yoga class once a week,
Mm.
right? In COVID, because of the lockdowns and things, they started to do it online on Zoom. And for some people, they've never got out of that habit,
Yeah, it's like
right?
the muscle weakened, the
Yeah, the muscle
societal
weakened.
connection
And look,
muscle, the immersion muscle, and you've actually got to build it back up very
hu- hu-
consciously, I've found.
I totally agree. Humans are wired for ease, right? We've always taken the easy option. Suddenly, people were like, oh, why do I have to go and drive and park or go?
Yeah.
I could just put on my computer and do it. But
Mm.
that is coming at a cost. I say to people, sure, do your 15 minutes a day on YouTube if you want to, but make sure you also go once a week to an in-person class where you meet other like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. As I said before, I've just come off the back of this 16-date UK tour, which I've never done before. This big theatre tour it's going to be slightly different in Australia. This was a theatre show called the Thrive Tour. And one of the things that people have said, because almost 20,000 people came out over the course of March, they're like, you know what? It was so great to be in a room
Mm.
with 1,000 other like-minded people who are all interested in the same things that I am. that collective energy is powerful. It's inspirational. It's motivational. And this also links to something we said earlier on in the conversation where, this idea that to be well in this modern world, you have to go against the prevailing tide.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means some of us feel quite isolated, like maybe our
Yes.
friends don't do what we do. So we're sort of trying to live our best life in conflict with the people around us.
Mm.
If people come to my show or any other health show, you're going to be surrounded by other people and you're going to realize, oh, it's not just me. There's another 1,000 people in here, or 1,500 or 500 people in here who also see the world in the way that I do. And it feels good. You feel part of this bigger community of other
Mm.
like-minded people. So I think these things go beyond just the information you'll get from the person on stage. I think you also go for the experience, basically.
100%. And as the creator, the teacher, it's also important to like get that energy to realize why you do what you
100%.
do. Yeah.
100%. Because, what you
Mm.
do, right? You've got a podcast. I have a podcast, right? We love the impact our podcast has on people. But a lot of the time, we can only get that feedback on a digital platform,
Yeah.
right? People are listening on their digital devices. They might tell us on Instagram or send us a message. And of course, it's lovely to read these messages, but it ain't the same as seeing the whites of people's eyes, or when they stop you in the street and they say, oh, that podcast really helped me think about my life differently, or it's really helped me with my mental well-being, or whatever it might be. It's different. It's who we are. It's who we've always been. And so I think that human connection piece is something we've really missed during COVID.
Yeah.
And as you say, we need to actively think about bringing it back into our lives.
Beautiful. Well, what a beautiful note to end on. I know it's bedtime in the UK, so thank you so much for joining me and our wonderful community to share some of the insights and your beautiful optimism that always shines through in all the work you do.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Alex. And hopefully see you and some of your audience this summer, or your winter, this July, I should say,
This July, I'm sure
in
we'll be
Australia.
there. Have a great night.
Take care.
I hope you loved today's show as much as I loved bringing it to you. I want to remind you that if you are someone who craves a low tox community that is judgment-free, full of empowerment, has health professionals and building health professionals that can support you, as well as me in there answering questions multiple times a week, I want to invite you to join the Low Tox Club. For the price of less than a cup of coffee a month, you have an annual membership for $49 Australian, so it's about $30 US or euro, that allows you to have a member masterclass every single month with a health professional or global expert from the podcast, where we have them to ourselves for an hour to ask questions and deep dive further. You have the beautiful supportive chat group. You have Q&As with me answering questions. We read books and talk about them, and a whole bunch more. You can head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the explore tab, and join the club is the very first option on that list. Of course, we have over 10 evergreen courses that you can jump into anytime, whether it's navigating everyday low tox swaps with our Go Low Tox signature course, whether you have kids and you're wanting to know how to best support them with our Low Tox Kids course, whether you're planning a family and looking at a healthy low tox preconception journey, reducing inflammation, especially the chronic kind, with our Inflammation Ninja course, many other courses. You can again head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the courses tab, and you'll see all of the options, which includes a business course, my Low Tox Method program. A lot of people don't know, but I was doing a lot before starting Low Tox Life in 2009, and I was a business consultant across hospitality, health, retail, and cosmetics. I have been in business consulting for a very long time, so I absolutely adore helping people move into the low tox space or develop their low tox businesses. So that's a way I can support you. And then, of course, there's our wonderful social media communities at Low Tox Life on Instagram, and of course, the website with over 250 gluten-free recipes, blogs, downloadable PDFs to help you navigate wanting to get rid of synthetic fragrances in your school or office. I could go on. So head to lowtoxlife.com, see what takes your interest or fancy, and thank you so much for being a part of our podcast community. I love, love, love reading your reviews. I appreciate every follow and subscribe, and I want to just remind you to finish off that if there's anything you heard that you found interesting from a medical or scientific perspective, it is intended as education only. Please always chat to a health professional who knows you and your situation best. I'll see you next week. Bye.